Hello, everyone. We're back today on a Sunday, I believe it's the 27th of February today, and we are going to continue into the script. What does the Bible tell us about conspiracies? We're on session number 13, and I'm with Michael in Germany. Michael, welcome.
Welcome, Brett, and hello, dear listeners. I'm glad that we could make it on this sunny Sunday. We got the next session of What Does the Bible Tell Us About Conspiracy going. This is session 13 in English. And this session is, of course, the successor of the last session because I tried it in the beginning. I tried to do it a little bit chronologically, and I hope we succeed. So this session is called The President of the Century. Of course, it's about conspiracies in general and the assassination of President John Fitzgerald Kennedy explicitly. So this is John F. Kennedy standing in front of the people of West Berlin in 1963 and shouting out that he is a Berliner. So it's absolutely futile to go in this because we did it on the last session. And for another thing to mention would be that, of course, he was not the one writing the speech. Other people were writing his speech, and also it's absolutely BS. He was never coming from Berlin. He was just visiting Berlin, and he wanted to express his sympathetic feeling towards the Berlin population. But later we will find out that it was the message out in the open, but there were other things going on behind the lines. So you see, this is just telling the people what they want to hear. That's nothing else. That does not take anything away from the person, the character of John F. Kennedy. But you see, a politician is somebody, and he studied politics, is somebody who has to sell something or some information to the general public to, in this case, calm them down. Because a few weeks after the visit of JFK, the East German government, they have built a wall to separate West Berlin from East Berlin. So it didn't help that he was telling the people about his sympathetic feelings. Didn't help at all.
Oh, that is a very interesting point, Michael. Why is it they built that wall? I mean, you're more familiar with this history.
Yeah, if you really want to know, I did a German session about that in another German series I did. The series is called Television. What does it actually television means? Television means that you receive a vision from far away. And though I spoke about it, and the Germany was split between West and East in general. So the country was split into a capitalistic country, the West Germany. It would be the equivalent of maybe South Vietnam. Yeah. And the communist East Germany was being handled by the Eastern Bloc, or handled especially officially by the USSR, by the Soviet Union. So communistic. So you got the capitalistic West against the communist East, which would be the same in the whole wide world map. You see that during the presidency of Kennedy, communism was a big threat to American capitalism. It was sold as that. You see the McCarthy area, when they have even thrown out Charles Chaplin he was being accused to be a communist, sympathetic to communist, and all the things of J. Edgar Hoover as the chief of the Federal Bureau of Investigation. You see that all these people were anti-communist, and there were a high anti-communist agenda in these days. Remind you of Fidel Castro being accused as a communist, and also of the alleged assassin of JFK, Mr. Lee Harvey Oswald. We will deal with him later on, who was being accused of being sympathetic towards communism because he was being married with a Russian wife and he has stayed in Russia. So that is the background. You see that you have the so-called Cold War in the 1950s, 60s, 70s between West and East, between capitalism in the West and between communism in the East. But of course, it is just a play around among left versus right from the Jesuits. It's nothing else. But he has to sell the good news to calm the people down. At the same time, American tanks were approaching the border without a wall at that time when Kennedy was in Berlin in June 1963 to protect the western sector of the capital. It was not the capital then. Of now, Berlin is the capital, but in 1963 it was not the capital, but it was a divided or a split city. Yeah, and so West Berlin was isolated because it was surrounded by all the communist cities and counties in East Germany. It has a special status up to this very day, if my knowledge is correct, that West Berlin has a special status. For example, if you were an inhabitant of West Berlin in the 1960s, you weren't allowed to go to the army. Otherwise, if you were living in West Germany, it was mandatory to join the army. So they had very special status, that West Berlin. And West Berlin was under the rule of the British, French, and the Americans. So there was special sectors, and there was one Soviet sector, which then happened after the war, the building of the Berlin Wall happened to be East Berlin, or the communist sector. Yeah, so that's what Kennedy was telling the people. Yes, we will protect you. We are on your side, and Berlin is a free country. And he told the people really that he was sympathetic towards the Berlin people, but he did not do anything against the building of the wall. And now it gets maybe more interesting for the general audience out there. It is very interesting that, on the other hand, the communist East German government told the people officially that it was a protection wall. So it is only for your protection. Every time they restrict somebody, and even building a wall to separate West and East Berlin, you see that people were separated from their relatives.
Right. Gotcha.
They were selling that to the East Berlin people. They were selling that as a protection wall against capitalism. So it's always the same. You see that you won't get the truth from official sources. You won't get the truth from any kind of government media. You see the West was accusing the East for being a threat, and the East was accusing the West for
the same thing.
Being a threat, yeah. So that the tanks of the American army stationed in West Berlin at that time could not move into East Berlin. Yeah, so that was more or less was the official reason to build a wall to separate West to East. Yeah, and so the Berlin Wall is, of course, a very famous.
So it's a military operation, more or less.
I wouldn't call that a military operation. It was a political decision. You see that you have a visible frontier between capitalism and communism. Yeah, and so there were also you can imagine. You are now leaving West Berlin, or you're leaving the American sector. Yeah, so you see that they had to face a wall between West and East in the middle of the city. So, and there were armed soldiers on the side of the East who would then fire to every citizen and kill every citizen who wanted to leave the East sector to get to West Berlin. And people were only allowed to go from time to time to visit their relatives from East to West, and they had to exchange the currency, and they were facing with soldiers, armed soldiers, and so you see that was the Berlin Wall. And so that maybe you get another idea of another brick in the wall from Pink Floyd when Roger Waters. Yeah, when Roger Waters then, after the fall of the wall, so to speak, which was of course planned, it has been sold to the German people. It has been sold that it was just by the pressure of the inhabitants. They had protest marches, and so that then the government was forced to open the wall, which is absolutely BS. Of course, it was planned long before.
Right.
Yeah. So, but that's also the, up to my knowledge, the biggest concert that ever went was Roger Waters live at the Berlin Wall in 1919. That was the year when Germany was then reunited officially. Yeah, and you see that logo here on Pink Floyd, The Wall, Berlin, 1990. Of course, it was 1989 in October, and it is also very interesting because it was on the 9th of November 1989, when the Berlin Wall was crumbling down. Yes, on the 9th of November. Can you imagine? 9th of November, 9/11.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, it's the same. Yeah?
Wow.
It's the same as as September 11th. Yeah, so November the 9th is also 9/11.
Yeah.
Huh?
That's right.
Yeah, but they sell you the Berlin Wall as a protection. Yeah, Berlin Wall. The Eastern Bloc.
That's a way they divide us, Michael, between the United States and Europe is, you number the days before the month and we number the month before the days. Mm-hmm. So, there's differences like that people learn, and then they expect that it's always going to be that way. And, just things like that are always, what can I say, obstacles to because it's different. And and who knows why things are like that, but that's kind of how this world works. There's different priorities for different things, and you learn a specific way, and once you encounter that, it's like learning the Knights of Malta are really behind a lot of the politics in the United States. I mean, you just don't learn that. You have to study it for yourself and discover it, and no one teaches that, so to speak. You just kind of bump into it, and what on earth is this? It really is a religious war that we're in. Mm. But you just can't express that in a way that's socially acceptable, if you know what I mean. Mm-hmm. It's just people won't accept that.
But isn't it similar to the modern day and age in 2022? Yeah, mm-hmm. Now this government portrays the wall as protecting its population from fascist elements. Yeah, it's always protection. Always the thing that is going on since 2020 is only for your protection.
Yeah. Fascist elements. Yeah, it's interesting. Wasn't it in one of the mouth organs of the Roman Catholic Church? They were speaking about the most beneficial form of government to the Catholic Church is fascism. Mm. Yeah.
Officially, they claim here that Khrushchev, so the Soviet president, the Soviet leader, had become emboldened upon seeing United States President John F. Kennedy's youth and inexperience, which he considered a weakness. In the 1961 Vienna summit, Kennedy made the error of admitting that the United States wouldn't actively oppose the building of a barrier. The feeling of miscalculation and failure immediately afterwards was admitted by Kennedy in a candid interview with the New York Times columnist James Scotty Reston. On Saturday, the 12th of August, 1961, the leaders of the German Democratic Republic, which is not a democratic republic, it was a communistic republic. So they sell you their communism as democratic, which is the same thing going on in Germany nowadays. Everybody's claiming that.
And it's going on in the United States too, by the way.
It's everywhere, yeah.
Yeah, it really is. I mean, that's what threw me when George W. Bush made this speech in 2017. And at the end of the year, he started talking about, what democracy is. It's like, wow. Mm-hmm. It's just really interesting to listen to what he had to say. Mm-hmm. And, it's all rhetoric. It doesn't mean anything to me other than it's more of an admission of, how these people use their power.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and also it's very interesting because they are not only selling it as protection against capitalism, but also they are leaders of their so-called Democratic Party. They told the people no one's got the intention to build a wall just a few days before. Yeah, so they are blatantly lying to the people. This is Kennedy visiting the Berlin Wall, so you see that nobody could prevent that from happening. But it is interesting to know that later on, maybe, that Kennedy saw the direct contact to the Russian leadership. And that was what made the American Secret Service furious. That they had a feeling of being obsolete by the brothers of Kennedy going directly to the leadership of the Russians on several things. Cuba, for example. That made the CIA, for example, furious. Mm-hmm. And we know that also Mr. Kennedy has then fired Alan Dulles as the head of the CIA, which was a sovereign military knight of Malta, like Reinhard Gehlen, like all the other people.
All the
like
rest
also,
of them. Yeah.
Like also the father of JFK was a knight of Malta.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, he was a diplomat. He was the ambassador to Great Britain. Yeah, so therefore you be a secret agent. When you are ambassador, you know many state secrets.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the background when John F. Kennedy was calming down the Berlin population. But at this time, 7 weeks before the wall was built, on 13th of August, 26th of June until 13th of August, about 6 to 7 weeks. I think that he knew that it would happen, but he had to calm down the people, and he was, of course, being celebrated here as a hero. Yeah, so they saw him as the leader of the free world. They saw him as the powerful man of the world. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that was about 5 months before his assassination. And you see that here you got many people here on rooftops, so many occasions here that people could have shot him.
Right.
It's just one possibility, but you see there are other things coming. And so we know that he was assassinated. We know when and we know where, but most of the people don't know how, and almost nobody why. There are many rumors that he was killed because of Castro, because of the mafia, because of the Fed, of the currency of Vietnam. And I think that we will cover another subject in that. And maybe you can get familiar with our kind of biblical views on it. So when President Kennedy was shot dead, also many leaders from other countries, for example, here Ludwig Erhard of the German Chancellor, General Charles de Gaulle, the Prime Minister of France, and several other peoples were then here to farewell the president. So why did I name that session here 13? Why did I name it the President of the Century? Because there is a strange coincidence. We know that there are two famous presidents. There are many more who has been assassinated, killed in any way. But we have just two very prominent presidents who has been assassinated out in the open. That was on the one hand, on the left hand, Abraham Lincoln, and on the right it was JFK. And it's very interesting because we know that the background of the murder of Abraham Lincoln was something regarded to the Jesuits and something regarded to the Catholic Church. Because somebody who was involved in the killing of Lincoln, he then escaped, and he was hiding for, I think, more than 20 years as a bodyguard, serving as a bodyguard in the Vatican afterwards. Yeah, there are many people who can tell you much more elaborate about it. Just 2 or 3 come into my mind. It would be Tom Frest, Jörg Glismann, and Daryl Eberhard. And you see that is just a thing that it has been planned by a Catholic family. And many people who have been caught with that has been hanged officially. So they had been sentenced to death. And so the entire background of it is a Jesuitical or Roman Catholic background, and that's what Mr. Lincoln told. Yeah, you see that there are many people who really wanted to get rid of Lincoln because he was anti-Rome, so to speak, or anti-Vatican, and he has officially made a stand against the Jesuits. So, for example, you got, I have not covered it here, but I can do so in no time. You have here Mr. John Surratt, been depicted here as a spy, American Confederate spy, who was accused of plotting with John Wilkes Booth to kidnap the President Lincoln. He was suspected of involvement in the assassination. His mother, Mary Surratt, was convicted of conspiracy. Aha, conspiracy, that's the name of the session you see here, and hanged by the US military. She owned a boarding house that the conspirators used as a safe house and to plot the scheme. Aha, so this John Wilkes Booth was a stage actor who assassinated President Abraham Lincoln and the Ford Theater in Washington, D.C. in 1865. From Maryland family. Aha, you can imagine why Maryland. Yeah, so Mr. John Wilkes Booth, he was assassinating President Adams from point blank range. You know that very famous picture. It's not a photograph, but a picture of the assassination of Abraham Lincoln. The nation of Lincoln. Yeah, you know, this is point blank range and shot in the head during a visit of the president in a theater. I think it was a Ford Theater. Yes, at Ford Theater, Washington, April, etc., etc., etc. So, he escaped to Egypt. No. We have to find the Vatican. Diplomatic relations between the United States and the Vatican. Yeah, I can show you where you find it, where you can find it. But first of all, let us compare, because I found here a comparison sheet where I'm doubting one claim, but the others are very interesting. I named that session the President of the Century for obvious reasons, because they are just 100 years apart between Lincoln and Kennedy. You see, Lincoln was elected to Congress in 1846. Kennedy was elected in 1946. He was elected president in 1860. Kennedy in 1960. Lincoln's successor was Andrew Johnson, born in 1808, and Kennedy's successor was Lyndon Johnson, born in 1908. So you got 3 times, you got a difference of 100 years. Both were shot on a Friday. Lincoln was shot in the Ford Theater, and Kennedy was shot in a Lincoln made by Ford. Lincoln was shot in the back of his head in the presence of his wife. Kennedy was shot in the back of his head in the presence of his wife. Lincoln has a secretary named Kennedy who told him not to go to the theater. Kennedy had a secretary named Lincoln who told him not to go to Dallas. I can back that claim. I cannot back up the claim number 1 because I have not researched that here, and I don't know if that is correct. I know that the secretary of Kennedy was named Evelyn Lincoln. She even has written a book, and this claim seems to be valid. So these are so much interesting similarities here. For example, both assassins, they bear 3 names: Lee Harvey Oswald against John Wilkes Booth, etc. And there are so many things that it's very interesting. Both shot Lincoln in a Booth shot Lincoln in a theater and fled to a warehouse. Oswald shot Kennedy from a warehouse and fled to a theater. If you think that it all happens by coincidence, then you're on the wrong session, on the wrong channel. Yeah, because I don't think that there are coincidences. I find here much similarities. For example, the murderer of Abraham Lincoln was killed before being brought to trial, and Oswald, the alleged murderer of Kennedy, was killed before being brought to trial. So they are 100 years apart from their starting in the Congress, and also exactly 100 years apart from starting of the presidency of Lincoln and Kennedy, and many other similarities here. So I find that very interesting because of one special thing. If you want to know about the Vatican relations to Abraham Lincoln, or the assassination of Abraham Lincoln, then you have to follow the link or to buy the book from Burke McCarthy. That's a book that Daryl Eberhard frequently is advising to read. It's called The Suppressed Truth About the Assassination of Abraham Lincoln, the religious conspiracy surrounding the president's murder. We're talking about here of a murder who happened about 160 years ago. 160 years ago. Abraham Lincoln has made a quote, or it has been attributed to him. He said, "The American Civil War would have never been possible without the sinister influence of the Jesuits. We owe it to Popery that we now see our land reddened with the blood of her noblest sons." And there is another book. It's called 50 Years in the Church of Rome, The Conversion of a Roman Catholic Priest by Charles Chinekui, where our brother in Christ, Daryl Eberhard, frequently points out that nobody knows how to spell the name correctly, but that's the name in Charles Chinekui, not Chinekui, I don't know. But this Charles Chinekui was a priest, and he was being accused, and as Mr. Abraham Lincoln happened to be a lawyer, before he went on to become a member of the Senate and before he went on to become president of the United States. He was defending Mr. Charles Chinekui. And when the process was over and Charles Chinekui could then leave the court as a so-called free man, Mr. Abraham Lincoln found him in a very desperate state. And he asked, "Why are you making that desperate expression?" And he said, "Well, Mr. Abraham Lincoln, I'm fearing for your life because I recognized some Jesuits in the courtroom and they were looking at you with some sinister expression, and therefore I'm very frightened that they would try to kill you." So that you can also read in 50 Years in the Church of Rome, the conversion of that very Charles Chinekui, which happened to be personally befriended with Abraham Lincoln, because Abraham Lincoln has won the trial, and Mr. Charles Chinekui was not sentenced to anything. Yeah. And also these James Wilkins Booth, this guy, according to our brother Daryl Eberhard's research, he was a member of the Knights of the Golden Circle. So he was a knight. He was knighted. Yeah. So all these people, they bear a Vatican background. And that's very, very important to know. That's very important to know. That must be Sean Surratt. Why is it not mentioned that he fled to the Vatican?
Well, because think about it. The suppressed truth of Abraham Lincoln's
suppressed truth. Yes.
I mean, come on. Yeah. They're not going to tell you.
No.
They're never going to tell you the truth.
Yeah, that's it.
Why would they?
Here, you see that history.com. He fled to Canada. Mary Surratt. Okay, let's have it for Canada. Very poor country nowadays. Yeah. Oh, come on. After Booth shot Lincoln at Fort Theatre, John fled first to Canada and later to Europe, where he posed as a Canadian citizen and served for some time in the papal wars. There you go. You see? Memory is correct. Memory is correct. Yeah. You see that? What a coincidence. The Papal Zouaves, a volunteer regiment that defended the Vatican during the Italian unification. Yes. Okay, so much so. You can read it in that book. Okay, so then what is about Mr. Kennedy himself? I think that Brett is very much aware of the county of Utah. And where our brother Hector is located. And in Utah, there's a fraternal order of police. Of course, only for your protection, please drive safely. Yeah. There's a fraternal order of police. And there is much more. Of course, you see that it's just that many people are being under the rule of an order, and it's just not by coincidence that these are fraternal orders, Freemason orders, and all the things. And Freemasonry is the Protestant equivalent to the orders, so the night orders of the Roman Catholic Church. For example, there is a so-called Night of Columbus. Columbus, of course, was the first one who was conquering the so-called New World. And there is a connection between the Knights of Columbus and the police, of course. It's just intermingled. Yeah, it's mixed up. Yeah, it's absolutely mixed up. It's absolutely futile to go in every nitty-gritty, but it's absolutely mixed up. You got members of every profession in these kind of orders. Yeah. And Mr. John F. Kennedy himself, when we remember that his father happens to be a Knight of Malta, SMOM, he was a special counsel of Knights of Columbus. So that was his membership officially stated and confirmed on the jfklibrary.org page. Remarks by Senator John F. Kennedy at the 16th anniversary banquet of Pierre, Marquette, Council of Knights of Columbus in 1958. So almost 3 years before he went on to become president. He was then senator of Massachusetts. He said, "Why I am a Knight of Columbus. I know the need for Catholic action for God and country." And let me ask you a rhetorical question. Why do you think that it happens to be named the Knight of Columbus? What did Columbus do? To conquer the New World for the Pope.
Mm-hmm. Right. That's what we're never told in our schools, of course. Oh, Columbus discovered America. Yeah. Okay. All right.
Yeah. You know that there's a famous movie called 1492. Yeah. In English, it's called The Conquest of Paradise. There's a very famous music track, an instrumental track of the Greek composer called Vangelis. I will show you the English. You see that? The Conquest of Paradise is a 1992 epic historical drama, blah, 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 with the French author Gérald Depardieu and Sigourney Weaver. It portrays a version of the travels to the New World by the Genoese explorer Christopher Columbus and the effect this had on indigenous people. Yes, it's a conquest of paradise. It's to conquer. The Conquest of Paradise. And of course, they don't show you that. You see that Christopher Columbus had 3 ships. The very most prominent, famous ship is Santa Maria, which means the Holy Mary. Yeah, so he was on orders of the Spanish king and queen, but there were devout Roman Catholics. So he was under the papal conqueror flag, or to bring the Inquisition to America.
Yeah, that's right, Michael.
Yeah,
that's right.
Yeah, maybe we find a better picture, then I can show you what I really mean. Yep, that's the right picture. I know it's just a movie, but you see that it's a conquering of paradise. This is just a German translation. Now, what does he have in his hand? A Bible?
No, a carnal sword.
Yeah.
He's gonna slay the
conquering of paradise. You
pagans.
See that he's about to share blood. Don't tell me that he's just about to cut some wood.
That's right, Michael.
Yeah, when you know what happened after the Spanish and Portuguese discoverers then went to Latin America. Why is it called Latin America, by the way?
That's really interesting you bring this up, Michael. I never knew this movie even existed. Yeah, never heard of it.
It's Ridley Scott. It's not a nobody, and it's Sigourney Weaver. That's the I think, if I remember correctly, that's the main actress of Alien, huh? Sigourney Weaver. I think that's her. So this is not a B movie. Yeah, she has been 3 times she tried to get the Oscar, but yeah, Alien, yes, it's Alien. That was Sigourney Weaver, yeah, on Ghostbusters as well. Yeah, people are really want to have horror instead of love. Yeah, that's Alien. Now you know what I'm talking about. So Columbus went on to conquer paradise, and Columbus went on to spread the Roman Catholic faith in the New World. Then when people were heading to the so-called New World, afterwards it was just more or less to flee from the papacy, from the Inquisition, and to then settle in the New World and create a happy Protestant existence. So that officially the United States are a Protestant country, but they have been founded from Freemasons. Yeah, think of I told last time. Think about the foundation of George Washington, who happened to be a very, very famous Freemason. So what do we expect from a country where it has been founded by Freemasonry? Yeah, so Freemason is a secret society. They don't tell you that they're not serving the God of the Bible. Yeah, the only thing that they tell you it is you had a limited membership and you have to make some tests. But this is George Washington. He's a high-level Freemason. What do you think? Yeah, these are the founding fathers of your constitution of your so-called free country, which is not free at all. So it happens to be that it was been meant as officially, if you really would like to go back, it has been founded by the Jesuits in disguise.
Yeah, he was a member of the Society of Cincinnatus too, a high-level member. So that's his connection to, I think, the real hidden hand, so to speak, Michael, through secret societies. Yeah.
So he has officially signed that document where I am a Knight of Columbus, and we know that he was a Knight of Columbus, a high-ranking member of the Knight of Columbus. He was American president. Come on. He said, my membership is an asset to my religion, to my family, and to myself. My organization has proved and tested program of Catholic activity, the lay apostolate of organized Catholic manhood in the crying need of today. Membership is an aid to spiritual, mental, and physical growth. It's a guard and guarantee for myself, my wife, and my children. It gives me contact, association, and companionship with leaders and successful men. It is an example of service, aid, and encouragement to my son and other boys. Through friendship, fraternity, and faith, I can know and love my neighbor. My membership is a sound investment that will bring me real dividends in personality, character, and success. I receive the urge to think, will, and work to restore all things in Christ. I cannot live by bread alone. Yeah, that sounds fashionable, but the problem is, he said, I know the need for Catholic action for God and country. Which God he's talking about, which country he's talking about is quite obvious, because he's talking he's a member of the Senate of the United States, and he calls for Catholic action for God. Which God?
Good question.
God did not create the Catholic Church, and Jesus did not had made the foundation for the Catholic Church. That's what they are telling you, but it is not. If you really study the Bible, you know that it is not. It's been based on faith and not based on Saint Peter, because Saint Peter was no saint, and Saint Peter was the one who who denied Jesus Christ 3 times before the cock was calling. Or what is it in American English?
Yeah, it's before the cock crows thrice, you will deny me twice.
Twice, yes. So is it a coincidence that especially on Peter the foundation has been based, being the apostle, who denied Jesus Christ 3 times? Don't know. I don't know how it is in America, Brett, but on German churches, there is a cock.
We got them here too. Oh yeah.
Yeah?
Oh yeah.
Okay. Yeah, you see, I'm referring to this here, huh? Yeah. So that is an animal depicting for Janus, where here comes the morning January form, and I highly think that it has something to do with Saint Peter. So that's me. So that would be a symbol also, if you go according to the Bible, it would be a symbol for somebody who is denying Jesus Christ. When the cock crows, then you have denied Jesus Christ. So if there is just one animal of denying Jesus Christ, then I would depict the cock. Sorry. Sorry for the cock, you see, not to blame any cock, but it is in the Bible, has been stated so. Yeah, that's my explanation of it. A biblical explanation of it. So the Knights of Columbus, KFC, is a global Catholic fraternal service, etc., etc. Founded 1882. Membership is limited to practicing Catholic men. And you got a Supreme Knight. So it's about, of course, you see here the fasci, you see a sword, you see an axe, and you see an anchor. So it's had everything to do with Columbus, I think. Yeah, a knight carries a sword, and Columbus at least carries an anchor because, of course, he was coming by ship and not by plane.
And so of course, you have the fasci.
Yeah, of course, you have the fasci.
Yeah, what does the fasci represent? Ancient Roman government.
Yeah, it's the same as in your Senate.
Yeah, left and right.
Yeah, what we have depicted last time. So the Knights promote the Catholic view on public policy issues, etc., 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 etc. So that was where Mr. Kennedy was a high-ranking member of. 16,000 local Knights of Columbus. Of course, this is, as you would like to say so, this is an American branch of the Sovereign Military Order of Malta. It is just another name, so that people don't have the connection to the Vatican in the first place. So that's my explanation of it. Yeah. Promotion of the Catholic faith means nothing more than to conquer America and to make America Catholic. That's what they really mean. Notable Knights. Yeah. A 4th degree member of Bunker Hill Council number 62. Al Smith. Of course, yeah, he was running for presidency in 1928, of course. Ted Kennedy. Oh, look familiar. Yes, he's the younger brother. Conrad Hilton, American businessman, Hilton Hotels. Jeb Bush, American politician, governor of Florida. Oh, that was Florida. Wasn't that the state where they had that problem with the election machines, with the voting? Yeah, etc., etc., etc.
That's right, Michael.
And these are just the official names. Medieval knights. Shields used by medieval knights as a symbol served as the inspiration. The emblem consists of a shield mounted on a 4-May cross, which is an artistic representation of the cross of Christ. Yes, you have to believe that. Fasces. Yeah, an Italian symbol that had its origin in the Etruscan civilization that is before Christ and was passed on to ancient Rome, where it symbolized the magistrate's power and jurisdiction.
Magistrates. We're familiar with this term. This is a biblical term.
Yeah, the anchor represents Christopher Columbus, admiral under the orders of the kings of Spain. Yeah, what they don't tell you is that the king of Spain was under the orders of the Pope. A symbol, etc.
Of course, Michael. Yeah.
Yeah, it's always the same. It's always the same. Yeah. Yeah, so that tells you that your beloved president was a Catholic knight. So he was meant to be to conquer people into the Roman Catholic belief. Yeah, and that's a sword. That's the capturing of Jesus in Matthew 26. Matthew 26. No, Matthew 26. Oh, it's 47. My.
Yeah. Michael, verse 47, Matthew 26, 47 and 48 reads, "And while he yet spake, lo, Judas, one of the 12, came and with him a great multitude with swords, staves, from the chief priests and elders of the people.
Mm-hmm.
And should I read 48 too, or just stop?
Yeah, until 52. I just was.
Oh, 52. Okay, gotcha. Now he that betrayed him gave them a sign, saying, whomever I shall kiss, that same is he. Hold him fast. And forthwith came to Jesus and said, Hail, Master, and kissed him. And Jesus said to him, Friend, wherefore art thou come? Then came they and laid hands on Jesus and took him. And behold, one of them, which were with Jesus, stretched out his hand and drew his sword and struck a servant of the high priest and smote his ear off. Then Jesus said unto him, Put up again thy sword unto this place. For all they that take the sword shall perish with the sword.
Yeah, and now remember, thank you, now remember the symbol of the Knights of Columbus with the sword, huh?
There we go.
And also, it is very interesting because we did that extensively on Science as a New Religion, that you see that who was together with the ones who then captured Jesus? A servant of the high priests, the ruling class. And the conspiracies was about the government and the high priests, or the government and the satanic church, so to speak. Yeah. It's very interesting to see that way. You see that the conquest of paradise means the killing of people, actually. Yeah. So if you go into the history of the Knights of Columbus, you see that they were being erected or founded by a priest of Irish descent, Father Michael J. McGivney.
Well, that's the interesting thing about the Catholic Church, Michael. They regard heretics as not being people.
Mm.
So you're excluded from the privilege of being a person if you are a heretic and you hold the faith of the Bible.
Yeah, but if every time you go into Kennedy from a religious standpoint, it's very interesting because that you see, they carry that symbol up to this very day. It's a recent live session now here, and it's all the time you see that he's coming from a pure, devout Roman Catholic Irish descendant background, and then he was also a Knight of Columbus, and that I am puzzled by the fact that. Can you imagine when we went through? It was in a earlier session when he made that speech about his religion. He said, I'm not a Catholic candidate for president. Yeah. Nobody came up with his membership of the Knights of Columbus.
Right. That's true. You're correct.
Mm-hmm.
Because guess why? More than likely you need to be a Catholic to even know about it.
Yeah, and most likely you have to pick up the phone. So the founder of this Knight of Columbus was also an Irish-American Catholic priest. So it has the same background as the family of Kennedy. Yeah. And they are all doing it for the good of people, of course. Mm-hmm. That's why they carry a sword, huh? And a fasci. Mm-hmm. Sure.
Yep, that's why.
Yeah. As a mutual benefit society for Catholic immigrants. But only for Catholic immigrants it is a benefit. For all the other people, it is not a benefit. So it's a very one side of the coin. Okay, let's get back to the script then. They had an oath to get rid of Protestants and Freemasons. There is I don't know if that has been carried here in that American sector, oath. Yeah. During the nadir of American race relations, the Ku Klux Klan, KKK, 3 times 11, as K happens to be the 11th letter, it's 33. It's a Freemason organization, promoted a conspiracy theory which claimed that fourth-degree knights, as Mr. JFK, swore an oath to exterminate Freemasons and Protestants. The Knights began suing distributors for libel in an effort to stop this, and the Ku Klux Klan ended its publication of this false oath. Well, it seems a little bit similar to the oath of the Jesuits, then, I'd say. Yeah, but you see that you can't prove it, and therefore we will again get to the next thing. Yeah, but Kennedy was a high-ranking member of that. Okay, just proceed. And you see that fascist symbol once again here in God We Trust. Yeah, it's the same as in a dollar note in God We Trust. And you see the two fascists with an X. In God We Trust. Is it the quote of 2 Corinthians 4:4, Brett?
In whom the God of this world, equals Satan, hath blinded the minds of them which believe not, lest the light of the glorious gospel of Christ, who is the image of God, should shine unto them.
Yeah, so God is a tricky word, ne? Ask Mr. Arturo Sosa. Yeah, people will be tossed around when they ask themselves why are there two fascists in the US Senate when they have become a symbol of fascism. And you see that you will be fooled around, for example, from a Bachelor of Arts in History and English Literature of certain Mr. James Keeley. And he says, no, it has nothing to do with that. It's just an ancient Roman symbol, predated Rome. It was used by the ancient Etruscans several thousand years before they appeared on the wall of the House of Chamber. Yeah, but the origin, guys, is coming from the Roman area. A bundle of sticks, including a small axe, was a symbol of office carried by Roman officials. Yes. Yeah, but these existed before the Italian fascists came to power. That is his explanation. Yes, that's correct. But it existed for a certain reason, because there was also fascism before the Italian fascists of the 20th century were being set in place.
Oh, man. Isn't it something?
E pluribus unum. Where do you know that from, huh? Yeah.
Right.
So the Italian National Fascist Party, which ruled Italy from 1922 to 43, derived both its name and its symbol from that ancient Roman symbol. Yeah, that's correct. And also that is what makes me furious sometimes when people accuse people of being nationalists in German or Nazis in German. You see that there are so many people who are absolutely close-minded and are not educated on that matter. You see that Germany took over the fascism from Italy. Yeah, so Benito Mussolini, as the dictator of Italy, was years before Adolf Hitler came into power. It's so hilarious.
That's true.
If you really accuse of older Germans or Germans in general as being a Nazi, how do you call Italian people? How close-minded people are, I don't know. You see that 1922, Hitler rose to power in 1933. Now, it was Mussolini, the dictator of Italy, who set then the Vatican officially in power with the Lateran Treaty in 1929. Yeah. See, you have to do your homework. You have to study history before you accuse somebody. Yeah, so this is the old symbol. It's always, says here this Bachelor of Arts, it's always dangerous to associate symbolism and etymology with meaning. Yeah, sorry, what are symbols and etymology and names for? The fascists existed before, during and after the rise and fall of the Italian fascists. Yes, of course, because it was just a small kind of a history period. And the fascist is a symbol of government authority and not fascism. Yeah, but what is fascism other than government authority when you combine industry and state? It's the same. You see that these people are fooling you.
Yeah, of course. Of course.
So, this is Columbia, huh? Columbus. Yeah, the name of Columbus, or in honor of Christopher Columbus, of course, is Columbia. And Washington is a district of Columbia. And this Knights of Columbia magazine called Columbia in January 1964, 2 months after the assassination, more or less, for 20 cents is depicting JFK here, the death of President Kennedy, a statement by Supreme Knight Luke E. Hart on the same and very date that Kennedy was assassinated, the 22nd of November. 22 plus 11, 11th month, November, makes results in 33 once again. But November usually is the 9th month because November comes from neuf, or nove, it's the 9th, and December comes from dece or decimal. It's a 10. So usually,
right. So that's the you're speaking of the Julian system, aren't you?
Yes.
Isn't that interesting? The Julian system dates way back to before Christ, isn't it? Even.
Yeah, it was the Pope Gregory who set up that so-called modern calendar.
Right, exactly. And when was Pope Gregory? What year was that? Was after the Reformation.
Yeah. What I just wanted to say, it was 16. Yeah. So
yeah. So 16 centuries of Julian calendar, and then all of a sudden this big change. And oh yes, you are an April Fool now because you are you are protesting the change of the calendar.
1582. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Inter gravissimas, a papal bull.
Yeah.
And this papal bull is valid unto this very day because everybody is using the Gregorian calendar.
There we go.
Mm-hmm.
Correct.
Okay, and this Supreme Knight, Luke Hart, says, the members of the Knights of Columbus are overwhelmed with grief of the loss occasioned by the assassination of President Kennedy, the most distinguished member of our order. He was kindly, considerate, patient, and understanding. His qualities of heart and mind were benefiting the magnificent attainments of his remarkable career. In the light of the most searching scrutiny, he met every test, intellectual, cultural, humane, religious, patriotic. Our heart go out in sympathy to his stricken family, to our nation, and to all mankind. May his soul rest in peace. Well, if it was really been published on the 22nd of 1963, I don't know. The magazine was published in January. I don't know when this note has been written, but it's always depicted here that he was a member, you see, of this Bunker Hill Council number 62, being a Knight of Columbus. It's the Knights of Columbus themselves who confirm that. Yeah. So he was not only visiting the Pope as the American president, he was also visiting the Pope as a Roman Catholic, and he was visiting the Pope as a Knight of the 4th grade, a Knight of Columbus. What is about the separation of church and state? We have to really understand. We have to really understand what's going on. You see that he's shaking the hand of the Pope, but he does not kiss the ring of the Pope. Yeah. I think we have to
I think separation of church and state is another example of esotericism. What they do is they tell you exoterically, that means the common teaching is that the church is completely separated from the state, and there is no kind of what can we say communication there. There's not supposed to be any communication or any kind of transactions. Mm-hmm. But in esoteric form, what it really means is that the church is way high above the state, and it can dictate whatever it wants to the state, and the state has to comply. Mm-hmm. So that's what it really means. But of course, you would have to ask Tom Fress about that.
Yeah, so the leader of the free world, it's a hoax. You see that it's absolutely untrue. It's absolutely untrue, in my humble opinion. But you see that when he was visiting the Pope in 1963, the Pope himself was one of the popes, or one of the people who were then being responsible for the papal committee for refugees. and founded by that Pope. Yeah, so they should help Catholics to emigration, but they're also supporting refugees to escape justice. And the Red Cross, they had handed over travel documents who made the immigration possible, and they were named with false names. And the so-called red lines, these refugees were being shipped to Argentina. Yeah, so that really means that they helped to escape Nazis and real war criminals to escape to Latin America, because Argentina is Latin America. Yeah, so if you then compare the symbolism of the sovereign military order of Malta, or for here in this example here, the German help organization who are collecting blood, it's the Malteser, or the German Red Cross, Deutsches Rotes Kreuz, you see the symbolism is always the same. It has something to do with blood. The SMOM are shedding blood. Yeah, they are conquering nations. And the civil organization, yeah, so these are collecting the blood and then making a profit in selling it to the hospitals. But the people don't get it. They don't get it. The one is just a civil organization, and both of them are making money big time. Because people who are here in Germany are spending their blood for charity reasons, yeah, to help other peoples. They get a small bread for that, but they don't get any money for that. But this blood will be sold to blood banks and to hospitals. Yeah, so they're making a profit with that. And it's just the same name as the Maltese, Sovereign Maltese Order of Malta. And there are many people who are talking about, very few people actually who are talking about that. One of them is a guy called Ukigoni, The Real History of Odessa, the escape for National Socialists or Nazi war criminals. Yeah, and he's talking about that. He's talking about that. Yeah. There is a bomb in here. I don't know if I shall read that. Nationalists like Goyeneche anyhow, in that book from Ukigoni. It's a footnote, 29, says nationalists like Goyeneche anyhow support the recreation of the state of Israel because their fascism was stronger than their anti-Semitism, and they were with the right against the Palestinians, one relative of Goyeneche told the author on 29th of December 1997. The former director of the Argentine National Archives, said Goyeneche in the 1960s, still talked about, quote, burning down the Jewish neighborhoods, unquote. Author's interview with Eugenio Rome, 21st of November 1997. Another anonymous interview stated that Goyeneche claimed the images of the concentration camps had been faked by Metro Goldwyn Mayer. So that man was an Argentine Catholic nationalist politician from 1913 to 1982. So that's just a quote. He was the son of the mayor of Buenos Aires and the grandson of the president of Uruguay. And therefore came that statement here. He claimed, and the rest you can read for yourself. And this man has made much research in that field, documentations. He said that even highly searched war criminals like Joseph Mengele, the doctor of Auschwitz, he's on the official flight number, can be found. And you see that Ukigoni also himself has ties to high-ranking diplomats because he's coming from that. He focused on the role of the Vatican, Swiss authorities, and the government of Argentina in organizing red lines, escape routes for Nazi criminals and collaborators. So, and this Ukigoni happened to be, I think it was he was related to an embassy, if I can remember that correctly, embassy. Here in German you got it. Goni was raised in an Argentinian diplomatic family. His father, Santos Goni, was between 1920 and 1940 Argentinian consul in San Francisco, Vienna, Genoa, and Bolivia. His father was befriended with Eugene McCarthy, He was working in the Argentinian embassy in Washington, D.C. So this guy had many contacts. Yeah, he's not just one writer, the average writer. So when they had concerns about the ties of a president to the Pope, then what kind of concerns did they had 20 years or 30 years later when Ronald Reagan had his famous cover on the Time magazine, how Reagan and the Pope conspired, Holy Alliance. You see how much more in the open do you need? You see left, you see 1960 campaign, and you see here 1992 Holy Alliance. You see this is just another president, but even Time magazine has made it on the head cover here, on the front cover. How Reagan and the Pope conspired. So that is not my language here. They told us. Vatican puppet, United States President Reagan speaks via satellite to Knights of Columbus. Hello, don't get me the fact that he was some kind of Protestant. At least he was promoting the Knights of Columbus. At least he was promoting the papacy. Hello? So Ronald Reagan is one heck of a Catholic president. And it's the same with many other presidents too. Almost today in 2022, you've been officially governed by Mr. Joe Biden, who happens to be also an Irish Roman Catholic president.
Yeah. Again, esotericism, man. They tell you one thing on the face of it, but behind your back, they're doing all kinds of other stuff.
Absolutely. Absolutely, yes. Yeah. And to get the profession of being an ambassador to Great Britain, he had, of course, to be in some kind of high-ranking order, which he was. The father of JFK was the Supreme Military Order of Malta. All hail Caesar.
Oh, yeah. That's right.
Pope Pius IX, in his Discorsi, page 253, says, or quote,
That's right.
The Caesar who now addresses you and to whom alone are obedience and fidelity due. Is Caesar. That's the Pontifex Maximus. That's the title of the one who's having the secular and the clerical power. So he's got the state and church combined. Of course, the Vatican is the only state, to my knowledge, Brett, who is a church and a state at the same time.
That's right.
Yeah. When we look at the picture here of President Kennedy visiting the Pope, what do you see? Who's the most powerful man of the world? Look at the size of the chair. Look at the height. Look who's dominating the picture. Who's the most powerful man in the world? You don't have to ask anybody about an explanation. You simply have to look at that picture. The Pope is much more higher and has a higher chair and a more expensive chair, and is being equipped with the full robe, priestly robe, and is dominating the picture. JFK is just sitting there as a schoolboy.
Oh, he's surrounded by cardinals.
Surrounded by cardinals, surrounded by people, surrounded. You see that he's surrounded, and you see on the left side on the small chair for the king.
Yeah.
JFK, and on the right chair of the emperor or the Caesar, you see the Pope. And he's clearly dominating the picture. By this picture alone, you see that the Pope is not accepting the President of the United States in a discussion, because he's dominating the picture. It's so obvious. It's very obvious. But what did that very same Pope say when John F. Kennedy was assassinated? Pope Paul VI took the unprecedented step of inviting an American TV crew into the papal apartment so that he could express his sorrow and promise his prayers. The Pope recorded a message to be televised by the American Broadcasting Corporation, ABC. He will also broadcast over Italian radio. He says, quote, "We are deeply shocked by the sad and tragic news of the November 22nd killing of the President of the United States of America, John Fitzgerald Kennedy, and a serious wounding of Governor John Connolly, and we are profoundly saddened by the dastardly crime, by the mourning which afflicts a great and civilized country in its head, by the suffering which strikes at Mrs. Kennedy, her children, and the family. With all our heart we deplore this unhappy event. We express the heartfelt wish that the death of this great statesman may not damage the cause of the American people, but rather reinforce its moral and civil sentiments and strengthen its feeling of nobility and concord. And we pray to God that the sacrifice of John Kennedy may be made to favor the cause he promoted and to help to defend the freedom of peoples and peace in the world. He was the first Catholic president of the United States. Remember, the Pope says peace in the world. That's pace, yeah, pace in terre. That was the papal encyclical, which was published in 1963 of the former Pope, Pope John. But the Pope here is explicitly talking about a sacrifice, that John Kennedy has been sacrificed. Or is there another explanation for the use of the word sacrifice?
I don't think so, Michael. I think it's pretty self-evident, isn't it?
Yeah, I think too. We recall our pleasure in receiving his visit and having discerned him in a great wisdom and high resolution of the good of humanity. Tomorrow we shall offer the holy sacrifice of the Mass, that God may grant him eternal rest, so that he may comfort and console all those who weep for him on his death, and in order that not hatred but Christian love should reign among all mankind. Receiving this message on one day after the assassination, on the 23rd of November 1963. And there was much going on here. Much going on here behind the scenes. Yeah, that's the Whore of Babylon. Yeah, it's the Whore of Babylon. It's purple and scarlet. Yeah, how many Bible verses you see that you already know shall we quote here? Except maybe Revelation 17:2, as always, and it's valid since thousands of years, actually, or since the beginning.
Yeah.
17:2.
And that reads, with whom the kings of the earth have committed fornication, and the inhabitants of the earth have been made drunk with the wine of her fornication.
Yeah, and the wine is the doctrine. It's a doctrine, and this church is not poor. This church is the wealthiest organization of the world. Yeah, but that's a problem, that the people do not know the real explanation also about INRI. The people are being fooled by thinking it is Jesus Nazareum Rex Iuderium, so that it is should read then Jesus of Nazareth being the King of the Jews. No, but that's not the case.
That's not the case.
Yeah, because in John 19:19. It is not depicted that it was an abbreviation. So INRI can absolutely not have been depicted on the cross, but the entire sentence. So because if you really go into that and you ask high-ranking Catholics, or you have access to special papers, like, for example, Code with Babylon, INI stands for Justum Neca Regis Impius. It is just to exterminate or annihilate impious or heretical kings, governments, or rulers. And what is John F. Kennedy other than a ruler? What is he other than the King of America? America is no monarchy. There is no nobility originated from the so-called New World. So the highest ranking official in America is the American president. So therefore, he would be in the same position as a king of an European country who's leading a state. Just an example, the state of Netherlands or the state of Great Britain, where Queen Elizabeth is the head of state, or the Kingdom of Monaco. Yeah, so these are kingdoms, and so there is a king, the head of the state, and the equivalent would be in American policy would be the president of the United States. Yeah, he has been depicted or has been called the leader of the free world. So what do we expect? So he's the leader. Or he has been seen as the leader. Yeah, that is that broadcast of Pope Paul VI following the assassination of President Kennedy. You can look that up. Yeah, and you see here that JFK did that gesture to the Pope in expression of his honor to the Pope, because he was still a Catholic. But that's just not what the symbolism does tell you about the leader of the free world, huh? You see, when you think about the hierarchy, then you know that the Pope is on top. You saw that on that chair, on the height, on the quality of the chair, and you see that with the gesture that JFK makes. So he's subdued to the Pope, at least for the television cameras. Yeah, and this is Mrs. Kennedy on July the 2nd, 1963, making herself very small in front of the Pope. Okay, this is official protocol. Yeah, but you can read the symbolism of the pictures here. The mighty is the most powerful man of the world. Yeah, what do you see that? What do you think if you ask the 6-year-old? Yeah, okay, darling, this is the picture, and now please tell me who's the most powerful man on that picture? Yeah? Do you really think that your 6-year-old will tell you, without knowing who's who, that JFK now is here the most powerful man of the world? Yeah, you see, this man is in black, and this man is very colorful. He's wearing his robe. Yeah. And after the killing of Kennedy, we know that this is United Nations building. The Pope was allowed to enter and to visit the United States under the then presidency of Lyndon B. Johnson. Yeah? So what is that other than to roll out the red carpet, which means a sinful carpet? Yeah? Red is the color of sin and blood. From Pope Paul VI visit to the United States 2 years later, 1965. Yeah, you see, he's absolutely dominating the stage. Yeah, he has authority here. Everybody behind and around him is on a lower platform. He's on a raised platform. He's on the red carpet. He is in full dress. Ask your 6-year-old, who's the most important man on that picture. Yeah, you don't need anybody to explain anything. You only have to look at things with your own eyes. Yeah. Time report, the Pope's visit. By the way, we have, well, I have explained, in my humble opinion, it is just that this cape depicts wings. Yeah, remember the last session about Superman. Yeah, and the Ark and the Dove, they went to Maryland in 1634. Now, these are two ships who were being meant to spread the Catholic gospel to the so-called New World. It's the beginning of civil and religious liberties in America. Yeah, liberties, because the First Amendment, so that the Roman Catholic Church could not be forbidden or limited in the New World. That's the reason for this First Amendment, as far as I'm concerned, Brett. That book has been written by Amos Ice and it's been highly regarded by both Tom and Jörg. It's not the easiest of all books. And it is the foundation of the settling of Roman Catholics in the so-called New World. Yeah, so that was the Ark and the Dove. They were sailing, you see here, from Great Britain around the coast of Spain and around the coast of Africa, then to the east coast of the United States of America, which of course then was the New World. It's not in the United States, of course. There were no United States then, 1634. You see that symbolism here with the IHS, the two pillars, the Virgin Mary, the priests, and the Red Cross, or the Maltese Cross. Yeah? And so they are sailing, they are shipping full force to the New World. You see, other ships have a hard time, but they are in full force. Yeah, it's very interesting. Jesuits sailing through the pillars of Hercules to the New World order. New World, sorry. On the day, that happened on the day of... now I spoiled it. That happened on the day of the so-called Saint Cecilia, a Roman martyr venerated in Catholic, Orthodox, Anglican, and some Lutheran church. Okay. Why is that? Yeah. And can you imagine, Brett, when that took place, the starting of the journey of the Ark and the Dove to conquer America for the Roman Catholic Church?
Yeah. What about it?
You see that in the Ark and the Dove, in that very book, yeah, it's the beginning of the journey from the old world to the new world, to conquer the new world, so to speak, now the United States of America, who has been discovered by Christopher Columbus. Then in 1633 to conquer this for the Pope, which you would like to say so, for his church spiritually. It is the Ark and the Dove. So these two famous ships. And can you imagine now on what day they started the journey to Catholize the United States of America?
Oh boy, you got me.
Oh, it's very interesting. It's very easy. It was the 22nd of November.
Oh, isn't that something?
So 330 years on the same day, because the Gregorian calendar was still in charge and still in place, the Ark and the Dove started their journey to Maryland. Exactly 330 years, 33 once again, later, Mr. John F. Kennedy, as the President of the United States, has been killed. What a coincidence. In the line of coincidences which will follow, you will only see coincidences in the next sessions. I can promise you that. So many coincidences. So 3 days later, on the 25th of November, the Dove had to return to England because of rough sea, while the Ark continues their voyage. 3 days later. Do you know what 3 days later happened in the United States on the 25th of November? Your President JFK has been buried in an official ceremony, and it was happened on the same day when his youngest child, John F. Kennedy Jr., has his third birthday on the 25th of November, 1963. So that's a birthday you won't forget, when you have to bury your own father in the age of 3. Because he was assassinated in Dallas on the 22nd of November. The same day, and there's a chance of 1 to 365, the same day when the Ark and the Dove started the journey to Catholize the United States, who were then not the United States, but the so-called New World. So that's the symbolism after that. That's why also in the Roman Catholic Church they tell you that it's Saturday instead of Sabbath, because their Sabbath has been changed from Saturday to Sunday, the day of the sun, which happens to be today. So we are recording here on the Sunday, the day of the sun. Yeah, so nobody talks about Sabbath, people talk about Saturday, because we are living in a satanic world, of course. That's the Ark and the Dove. Yeah. Why a dove? That is repetition here. That is repetition. Yeah, and as Jörg points out, Rome never changed. They used to call us heretics and sent the Inquisition to kill us. Today they call us terrorists and send out their crusades. So it's the same all over again. And it's the Ark and the Dove story. That is the 22nd of November. So they are 100 years apart between Lincoln and Kennedy. Very interesting. And maybe both of them could be called the president of the century. I don't know. I'm not familiar with every American president. For example, here from the book of Chinekui, there's a chapter 15 where he says, before the day of which the theology of Rome was inspired by Satan. Yeah, so he's very explicitly using the language here. Yeah.
Very interesting you bring this up, Michael, with the comparison of Lincoln and Kennedy and all of the intricacies involved between Lincoln's death and Kennedy's death. This is something I've never really considered before, so it's always a pleasure to learn more from the perspective of the Bible, and comparing and weighing all of the different incidences that you're pointing out, because these are things that aren't talked about on a regular basis. It's very, very difficult to research this kind of information because of the suppression. I mean, we can simply see in the beginning of the session, we were looking at the Wikipedia page with John Wilkes Booth. And obviously you are not going to find any information about, what really happened in the court case of the trial of John Wilkes Booth and all of the other conspirators that were involved with that assassination. Same is true with John Kennedy. You don't hear a thing about it. You especially don't hear a thing about it with Kennedy. Back in the day when Lincoln was, assassinated, of course, that was probably a much different circumstance where you had much stronger Protestantism in the United States at that time. So, yeah, we've seen the slow decline over hundreds of years. And it continues to decline, actually. Very difficult for any of us to actually figure out the historical narrative of what our true history is all about, Michael. So I want to thank you for taking the time with me to explain all of the different comparisons and examples that you pointed out, because again, this is just information that you just can't find unless you search very hard and diligently for it. And then again, is so easily rejected by the people of this country because, it's a lot easier to take the money and be deceived, isn't it? Rather than to stand against it and point out the errors. It's much harder to do that. And that's why we find so little form of Protestantism today, because, the institutions have failed us because they were supposed to fail us, actually. This is a fulfillment of prophecy. So thank you, Michael.
Yeah, you're welcome. I hope I could shed some light in it. I will promise it will be very interesting in the next session when we go into more things about the Kennedy case, because it is, in my humble opinion, it is a pure religious case. And I think we have set a good foundation also in this session. Thank you very much for listening, and Maranatha.
Yes, Maranatha.